Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and moving towards a next video in our Azure Beginners to Professional series. Today we are going to discuss about conditional access policies, their implementation, what are the risk policies and all. So if you have not watched the previous videos of this series, you can take the link from the description box. The previous link would be there as well as the entire playlist. So you can take the link and watch the entire series as well. Okay, so now moving towards the what exactly the conditional access are there. Even though we have seen that in multi-factor authentication part 5, when we talked about the multi-factor authentication implementation, that time we have created one conditional access policy. I talked about in basic details. Now today we are going to discuss, apart from that, what else we can do in the conditional access policy and what exactly it is. So whenever we are talking about a conditional access, so from the name itself, you can understand you are trying to set some access conditions. So the conditional access, it's showing that you are going to put some access level conditions apart from the authentication or apart from the user authentication. For example, normal user authentication, once you give them, you are putting permissions and user can able to access it. This is the one thing. And the second part that is coming as that you are placing certain condition. If this condition is justified or fulfilled, then only you can able to access the resource. For example, if the MFA is enabled and you are able to fulfill the MFA multi-factor authentication, then only you can able to access the resource. Even though you have a permissions, your credentials are fine, but still there's an additional layer of security which I implemented as a part of conditional access. So whenever we are talking about a conditional access in Azure Active Directory or in Azure, so it's mainly focused area on the four basic components. One is the user and their location. The second one is the device. And the third one is application. Apart from that, it also helps you for the real-time risk identifications. So these are the four components which known as signals here. So what exactly? It's basically the conditional access will analyze the signals and the signals that are coming from your various resources associated in your organization. And this will control the whatever the condition, like it's working of the if as a condition. So whatever the condition you will place it, once this condition is justified or satisfied, then only you can able to access it. Otherwise it will be blocked. For example, you can see if any user logging from any device anywhere and they are trying to log in and access the system resource, we have placed a conditional as a require MFA. So once this require MFA condition is getting fulfilled, then you will be allowed to access the resources. Otherwise your access will be blocked. So this is just a scenario where we can see that the conditional we have placed to implement additional security layer of MFA with the help of conditional access policies. So you have to define a conditional access policy and what other policies that can be also placed with the help of conditional access, that we will discuss in the upcoming slides as well, how it's basically working and how in the same video, in this video itself. So this is the simple terms, like if we talk about a Windows based Windows AD, or we have a ADDS service where we have a group policies. So the group policy, you can set a set of conditions for the organization or set of policy restrictions, whereas the conditional access will gives you a conditional level policies configuration placement in Azure Active Directory. We can also have an option to implement the security defaults. If you remember my previous video, in the last part we discussed about the security defaults. That also helps you to implement certain security practices from the Microsoft, but that is again not a much flexible or as per your customized according to your organization requirement. So conditional access policies, that is again top of the second layer. So here you can put the configuration as per your organization customized requirement, which is not possible in the security defaults. So if we talk about the conditional access benefits, what exactly the benefits we are getting over here, we can see that it increase the productivity. Like whenever the user is trying to log in, and it's sometimes it's trusted devices are there, you can categorize the device as a trusted device. And once the device is a trusted one, like your organizational internal device, then you need not to go with MFA. That will reduce the signing effort as well. If the device is trusted one, then you can simply sign in for that device. The MFA doesn't require. So these type of conditions you can also place it. That will reduce the productivity uh, effort. So it will increase the actual productivity. We can also have a risk management. We can automate the risk management process with the help of this risky sign-ins and other policies that will identify if you are on a risk state, your sign-in will be blocked. That will saves your organization data loss. Whereas conditional with the help of conditional access policies, we can implement certain governance and the compliance policies as well, and that we can discuss it in the upcoming details. Whereas it also helps you to reduce the on-prem or the infrastructure management cost, because you can implement the conditional access policy. You need not to explicitly enforce system management or security management policies through group policy or an additional infrastructure. With the help of this, you can directly manage it. And obviously it's working on the one of the pillar for zero trust management. We can discuss about the zero trust, what exactly the zero trust framework. So it helps you to implement the zero trust model, where you have to do not trust anything. So we will discuss this in the more detail as well, what exactly the zero trust policies and their details. So these are the key benefits that we will be getting with the help of conditional access policies. Okay, what exactly the components that are available in a conditional and access policy? So when we are talking about a conditional access policy, there and we are going to create a conditional access policy, there are certain components. What are those components are there? The first one is obviously the name, where you can type the name of the policy. This is the one part. The second one is the users and the group section. So here I can select for the set of users where I want to apply this policy. Here I can identify the users. It's for the internal user, external users, or groups for whom, or you want to apply it for all the users. So all these type of conditions we can apply it. In the second section, we can see that the cloud apps or the action, where we can define uh, a set of policies applicable for a specific or this policy is applicable for a set of applications, or whatever the user actions that would be associated on the same. So we can discuss once I move to the portal. I will show you what exactly the subsections are available on the same. Whereas in the condition section, we can define the platform or the policy trusted locations as well. So here I can define the location. These are my trusted locations. These are my devices, for example, Windows 10, Windows 11, or iOS devices or Android devices, kind of things. We can place it over here. The access control that can be based on the implementation methodologies. For example, mark the device as compliant, hybrid Azure join AD device requirement as a required an MFA. So these kind of things I can define it in the access control, and we also have a grant section in the same. So we can discuss about that, how we can put in grant or a block activity in the next once I move over there in the portal. Whereas in the session control section, you can also control the access to the cloud apps by implementing the requirements such as enforcement of application conditional apps control, conditional access app control. So all these type of conditions you can place it in the help of session control, session section or session control section. These are the primary components, whereas the grant and the block access control, this is the most important part, which we can see it over here. So if you are putting a block access, then obviously it will block. If the condition is satisfied, then it will block the access. Otherwise, we also have an option with a grant access to enforce certain strategies. For example, require a multi-factor authentication, require a device to be marked as compliant. If the device is not marked as a compliant, you will not be able to access the device resources. Required hybrid AD joint devices. Required the approved client app. Required the apps protection policy. This is in a preview state till now. So these four are the primary ones. So kind of things you can place it with the help of enforcement for the grant or block level of particular policy. Whereas the enable policy mode is, if you put it in the off mode, sometime you created the policy, but that plan to be scheduled to be implemented after some time, for example 2 days after or 3 days after, then you can take in that way as well. Or you need to turn it off policy immediately just to avoid the impact, because you have implemented the policy but something went wrong, and whatever you have designed, that was not actually producing the expected result, and you have to immediately turn it off, that policy. So it's better, you can, instead of deletion of that policy, you can turn it off immediately for further investigation or the root cause analysis. Whereas the on, it always keep the policy in the on state. Report only will not actually block or implement or enforce user to do this, perform the same activity. Still it will gives you a report or a details or what exactly happening associated with the policy activities. The session access control, which is in the last section, you can see it over here. With the help of this session access control, we can define, enforce the restrictions. We can also have a option where we can control the cloud app control, that basically used to help when we have MCAS and other solutions. So I will tell you about that, how we can put it like in the same. Sign-in frequency, we can also define it, as well as the persistent browser session we can also define. And once I check this box, I will be getting an option to set up the configuration. That basically limits the user session or a experience with the specific application. So whenever you logged in, your session will be handled or managed or controlled with the help of this session control section of the conditional access policy. We will create one policy for the session control as well, to see how it basically working. The various scenarios that we can talk about, where we can say we have to create the conditional access policies or situations, where we can see the first one is require registration from the trusted location. Like if I'm going to create a policy and I need to ensure that the user who is trying to enroll for the MFA, might be if the new user account is enabled, created, and someone got that user ID and the password, so they can immediately go and register their number for the MFA instead of the actual user. So what I can put a require a trusted location to registration in the through MFA. What exactly happened in this situation? If I've added a trusted location of my office locations only, it will be based on the IP that are associated, the static IP addresses which are associated in your organization. So whenever the first time you have to log in and register your MFA number, contact details, everything, you have to be there in the office network, or you have to be connected with the office network only. Then you can able to register yourselves. Once you register your number, you can access it from anywhere in the world. But before that, the first time registration for MFA, you have to be in the office. That is based on the trusted location required registration process. We also block the access by the locations, where we can put block access. Block access is the condition. For example, I want to ensure that XYZ, we are suspecting that the location for the XYZ country would be as a suspected activities or number of ransomware or malware attempts happen from that particular location or a country. So what I can do, I can block that particular country or a location, because we do not have an office and we do not want to allow anyone to access from that particular location. So these kind of block access you can also place it through conditional access policies. Whereas we also put a require a compliant based devices, like your device must be compliant, whereas we can set a set of parameters to make the device as a compliant device. And as a recommended practice, always exclude the emergency access and the service account from your conditional access policies. So it must not block everything, or we can say the glass break accounts that are basically used to recover your admin situation, admin law, admin credential loss situations. So all these type of situations, we have to keep it as an excluded section from the conditional access policy whenever you are defining a policy. Okay, now let's go and see how to create and implement the conditional access policy and their assignment section. So let's what you have to do. You have to go to the portal.azure.com, the default portal. Let me just open my browser. You have to go to the portal.azure.com, your portal, or if you want, you can directly open the Azure Active Directory. Even though you can access directly conditional access, type it over here in the search box, and you can also access it from this part as well. So once I open this, what I need to do, I have to set up a policy for the user, where I'm going to first create one user account and going to show you to block certain applications. In the portal.azure.com, we have to go to the conditional access. So conditional access will be available in your security section. You can simply click on this manage. You can manage section. In the manage, we have a security. You can click on the security. There's an option conditional access. Click on this conditional access, and this is one existing policy is there. So create a new policy. Once I click on this new policy, I will be getting all the options. Here I can select the user, all users, selected set of group users, where the specific directory role users, all users group, all guest and external users. We have a application section where we can select the all cloud apps, selected applications, list of all the applications are there, so that I can select it. Conditions, I can put the condition where the user is sign-ins, device platforms, locations. So all these options are available. Like if I want to select a device platform, I can just go configure and include exclude. In the user risk level, if I go high, medium, and low, that I can also choose. We will discuss it what exactly the high risk users and the low risk users in this video itself after this completion of the same. Access control is part where we can see the grant control. You can see the grant required multi-factor authentication, required device to be marked as compliant, join azuread. We have a block as well available for this section. If I put a block, then it will block the basically as an action. If I go in the sessions part, we can see it. Use the enforce the application restriction, use the conditional access policy, and here we can have an option of custom policy. This will help you to integrate this conditional access policy with the Microsoft Defender for Cloud App Security, or MCAS, the older version. So older name was MCAS. So if you want to integrate it, then you can use the conditional app control and use the conditional custom policy, whereas this policy will basically helps you to configure it in the configure it in for Microsoft Defender for Cloud App Security. So let's move ahead and see how to create. We are going to create simply. I'm just going to create the 365 portal to check one user identity. For the same, I can try to create it. Okay, let's take one account. I'm just going to create another user. It's better. First, I'm just going to create one user identity, and for that particular user identity, I will be creating I will add this user account, and let me also create one group. So this is a normal strategy that as a recommended approach. So you can create one group. As a recommended approach, you must create one group, and then with the help of with that group, okay, we can see it. Test one is created, and then add the group instead of a individual users. But here I have taken a user only because it's just for the testing purpose, which I am doing it right now. So now I'm going to create, for example, I'm going to block application name is Yammer. So let me create a policy to block Yammer as application. User must not be able to access Yammer. So it's the name you can select it anything, whatever you want. Once we go to the applications, here I need to select an specific app. So I'm just going to click it over here, and Office 365 Yammer, and then select it. Okay, so now this app is selected here. In the conditions, I can leave it as it is. I do not want to explicitly set any condition at this moment. If you want to restrict it for the specific device, platform, location, that you can also put it over here as a condition. I'm going to the access control. In the grant access, I'm going to put this as a block access, or going to put as a block. So this will be in the block state. Here you can see the report only mode. I need to turn it as a on state. I'm going to create this policy. It's now successfully created block Yammer. So it also takes, whenever you are creating a policy, the timing for the, it's normally it will be implemented immediately, but still sometime it takes few minutes to replicate it and to implement in the same. So let me just go to the users once again and try to log in with that particular user account to see that if I am able to log in it or not yet. Okay. I'm just opening another browser. So now we have to check it out, this particular, or we can say we have to check it out the testing for this particular user identity. So let me just log in first with this account and try to see if the policies are replicated. Then I will not be able to access it. I'm able to access my office.com. I am able to access the my account, which is like Outlook, etc., that I can able to access it. But once I go to the Yammer, then we have to see it. Are we able to access the same or not? So let me open the yammer.com/office 365. Okay, that is still, it takes a few minutes. Yeah, you do not have to access. You have to sign in was successful, but you do not have access permission to access this resource. So this is the user, that user can able to access normal Office, other applications, but this application is in block state. If I want to retest it, what I can do, I can just go back to the policies and remove that user from there and try to see it once again. If I go to the block YAML policy once again, and or we can simply change it to the grant access and see. Let me change this policy. Okay, grant section is not defined, like require MFA or something, that I can put it over here. Required password change. Let's take like this. And here we have to set up the user risk sign in condition as well. Okay, let me just remove this user and we can quickly see this policy is now excluded for that user or not. Instead of changing a lot, let me include only external and the guest users. Policy is updated. Let me go back on the portal and try to, is it still required a refresh as well as, or a re-sign in required sometime? Let me just try to access it. Okay. Okay, now you can see that we are able to access the YAML as a application. So we have blocked that. Once I remove that user from this particular conditional access condition, we can able to access the same. Let's move back on the same conditional access and take a look on one another policy that is based on the frequency control. So what exactly we have to do for the frequency control? Let me create a new policy over here and show you. This policy we are going to create it for the sign in frequency. Like I need to ensure that the user must re-sign in after particular time duration. Name anything, you can select it. Again, user base, it's up to you. You can select the its page is stuck somehow. Okay, select the users. So still I am taking a specific users just to avoid the in the cloud apps section. I am just going to select it. Application will be, no, I am taking it as a Office 365. So let me take it out. It's for all the Office applications. Now the next condition I need to select it. What? We have to go to the session. Here you can see the zero controls are selected. In this section, I need to put the sign-in frequency. Here, the periodic reauthentication. So here I need to select the number of hours, number of days. If I can select it 1 hour, after 1 hour, you have to re-authenticate yourself. Or after 1 day, you have to re-authenticate yourself. So it would be different or how you are going to set it up. Now, if I select for the 1 day and just I need to click on select. So every single day you have to select it. Whereas you can put it report only or you can put it on state. On is a recommended it, but whenever. Okay, now you can see it's the sign-in frequency is created. Somehow it's moved out over here. Let me go back on the conditional access once again. So this is my sign-in frequency. You can see the turn it on and it's created. And if I go and check, it's the same policy. So what happened after 24 hours? It will re-ask for the sign-in once again. The similar way, you can create the various type of different policies or conditional access policies. You can according to your requirement, you can create the different type of policy. Okay, let's move and see what else we can able to cover up here. Okay, user risk policies. So we can also define a user risk policies for Azure Active Directory identities, and that will be again a part of identity protection. So the user risk policies, basically it's based on the sign-in risk and the user risk identification that will ensure whenever users are identified as a risky user, they must be detected and self-remediated as well, like on the base of users logins, login behaviors, user activities that they are performing, or the login locations they are utilizing. On the basis of that, it will help to identify. Microsoft basically helps to identify that okay, this is the test, this is a user who is on the risk, take some actions to block their access, require put MFA configurations, all those things, or put the users in the risk categories as well. So once the user is in risk category, they may have to re-authenticate their enforcement, like the MFA reinforcement they have to do. They may have to change their passwords, or you may block the location. So all these type of things that you can define it explicitly for in the identity protection section. So this identity protection will again enforce the security methodologies, or we can say security strategies for user identity or in your organization. That will again helps you to put additional security measures, or we can say a security implementation strategy for your organization. The risk of label or the identification of user, if they are the high risk, low risk. So these things you can also define it with this identity and access protection, or we can say the identity protection scenarios. Let's take a look what exactly else we have over here. So when we are going to enable a risk or sign in risk policy, what are the basic activities we have to do, or how we can do that? Let's move to the portal and try to see it, what we have over here. Okay, once you go to the conditional access, obviously once you go to the security section of this Microsoft Azure Active Directory. So let me go back on the security. Here we can see that the option is available as a identity protection. So once you open your Active Directory, go to the Azure Active Directory. In the Azure Active Directory security tab from the left side, and in the security tab we have a conditional, next to the conditional access, identity protection. When I click on the identity protection, we can see who logged in, number of users who logged in your organization, user risk policies, and sign in risk policies. So here and the multi-factor authentication registration policy is also there. So here you can see that the various type of sign-in risk or risk policies that are available. To enable this user risk sign-in policies, if I go, I can see in the user risk policies who are going to be covered. We can see it, turn it on or turn it off. So I can select individual users or a groups as well. If I want to select it, let me just take it like this. Users and low and above the risk level or higher and above where you are going to enforce this, and access control level. If it is in high, you can select it enforced, like the high use categories or low use categories users. Whereas in the control section, I can put a block or allow access, require a password change. Once I enforce this policy and turn it on this policy, then this sign-in risk policy will be enabled for the users. In the sign-in risk policy, we also have a same strategy which is available over here. We can put it low or we can also put it high. The section for the user risk analysis. Whereas the user, if I want to turn it on, but as a recommended practice, always whenever you are going to implement this policy, any policy, first put the exclusion range with the certain administrators and take the include section with us with certain set of pilot users only, or users whom you want to test it first. If you put the policy for all the users, then if it will block for everyone, that would be again a major challenge to recover the same account environment. So it's always better keep in the strategic way, first implement it for a certain users. Once you see that okay, this is perfectly fine and working appropriately, then increase the user base, and always keep the your glass break or the emergency account out of exclusion range, or we can say out in the exclusion range. You must not enable the same for all the users. This is the primary requirement. In the security identity protection, we can set up sign-in risk or user risk or sign-in risk policies. Whereas for the configure the Active Directory multi-factor authentication registration policy, that is again we also have this option available. If I want to set up a MFA registration strategy, so that I can put it from the same portal. Let me just go back over here. To set up in the identity protection, we have to go there and then multi-factor authentication and the registration policy. Here we can set, you can set it as assignment it's for all the users and require the Azure AD multi-factor authentication registration. And if I turn it on, then obviously it will on for all the users. Whereas if I select it for the specific user, then I can select the specific users as well. Recommended approach, always select a group or a users as an inclusion and put the exclusion individually for your emergency accounts. You can turn it on. So the required multi-factor authentication will be applicable for this particular user or the set of users that you will select it over here. To select this, you can also check it and turn it on. I have already did that. So this policy will be applicable for the users that I will select it over here. We can also have option to see the sign-in risk reports where all the activities that has been detected, and you can identify from that particular report who is trying to sign in, what are the user identities that basically used to sign in, and what are the risks. So here you can see the report is there. Once I click on the risky users, I can see who are the risky level and risk users, risky sign-ins. Okay, so the activity you can see in the detailed report. Let me just go back on the my report page once again. So that will gives you the information about who is trying to log in. If all the number of users they logged in on the same account, they you will get the report of all the users. Here you can see, you can also filter it for the specific user or identify the uh, specific users, and even though you have a certain actions as well, like reset the user password, confirm user compromise, all those things are there. You can put it in that way. Let me just go to the portal once again and show you. So when I clicked on this, you can see you can also download the report. You can put the uh, confirm sign in compromise, or we can also confirm sign in is safe. So like that way you can remove the user sign in reports as well, or clear the pending task or activities. This will ensure that okay, user is on compromised state. So you can see the various details which are available over here. Users risk detection, user sign in risk, and user sign in risk. So here if I click on this activity, I have a certain options to perform as a risky operations or enforcement. Even though right now you can see just only a one identity which is available over here, because it's a test tenant and we are just testing it out over here. But once we have a live production scenario, you will get a number of user alerts that are available, and mostly based on the sign-in policies or the configurations that you are in place, or the security parameters that you will place it. So that's all about this conditional access policy and the identity protection section. If you have not watched the complete series, obviously you can take a look with the previous my previous videos, where we have all the details in the Azure Active Directory. I will be uploading the next video as well, and the next part we will take the couple of other new features that are added with the Azure Active Directory. So if the entire playlist and the previous video and the next video link you will be also getting in description box. So thank you so much for watching this video, and we will be if you have not subscribed this channel, please do subscribe it to get the notifications on upcoming videos. Thank you so much.